Graduates, congratulations, you have made it. Graduating is a huge turning point in the foundation for the rest of your life. It's the start to many new adventures. And I'm sure, like Lisa said, that I'm not the first to tell you this. Your teachers, your family, and your friends have probably all said this a few times so far, and if not, just wait for it. The constant continuation of great job, and then a lot of what's next. And I don't only mean today or this week. This is a forever journey. You will constantly be asked what's next at each graduation, in every job, in every relationship, at every step throughout your life. In fact, Lisa, you've also made it. Retiring is a huge turning point, the foundation of the rest of your life, and the start of many new adventures. Now what's next? Parents, congratulations, you've made it too. Getting your kids out of the house is a huge turning point. The start to many new adventures. So what's next? You see, it applies to everything. You will find that the world that you are walking into in a new way is so focused on what's next, on making sure that you're on the right path and ensuring that you're making the correct decisions to get you where you need to be. As you get asked and ask yourself what's next, always have at the forefront of your thoughts my first words to you. You have made it. All humans have the desire to make it, because to make it is to have value, to feel self-worth, and to earn the respect of others. But I'm here to tell you that you've already made it and you already have value. Anything else that you do is extra. The Islamic scholar and Sufi mystic Rumi once implored us, stop acting so small. You are the universe in ecstatic motion. Set your life on fire. There is no smaller way to act than to spend time worrying about what other people think. At the same time, we all do this. It is human nature to want to make it in the eyes of others. But the earlier in your life that you can come to the realization that you've made it, the bigger you can act and the more that your life will be set on fire. Accepting and truly owning that you've made it is difficult, but it is incredibly freeing. Some people know that they've made it spiritually by being made in the image of the divine. Others find it through the idea of human rights, equity, and empathy. But those are the lucky ones, to believe that everyone, by the pure fact of being, is valued. We all say that we agree with this, but truthfully, the vast majority of the people only feel that they have made it through accomplishments, that they can only make it when they have done something that others have not. The millionaire always wants to be a billionaire. The CEO wants to chair the board. The celebrity always wants more followers. And maybe the traveler always wants there to be a new country. We've been tricked into thinking that all value comes from exclusivity, that human value is a scarce resource and we have to fight others to attain it. But this is rather the definition of monetary value, of economics. Human value is sociology, psychology, and theology. We're taught that making it is being better than others, more successful, richer, more beautiful. It is not. Making it has nothing to do with others. It is all about yourself. But before I sound too much like I'm going to promote the utter breakdown of the power dynamics that run our society and economy, I have to come clean. I'm a strategy consultant, a venture capitalist, and an art collector. These three things distort value beyond your wildest imaginations. They're modern-day alchemy, and they are literally based on nothing other than convincing people that something theoretical matters. If you ask our recruiters what I do, they would say that I help the biggest companies, governments, and organizations to think about what's next. I'm in the business of what's next, a forecasting where corporations want to or should end up as their ideal destination. I cannot tell you what your ideal destination is, only you can do that for yourself, but I do have 4 pieces of advice when it comes to picking your destination, your what's next. Number 1, always plan 5 amazing things. If only one happens, you'll still be doing something amazing. Number 2, love that plan B, C, D, and E as much as you love your plan A. There's not only one destination that will give you the sense of value that you desire. All of you are incredibly dynamic. You are not defined by one thing, and thus you should not have only one goal. Number 3, don't spend your present focused on dreams you've had in the past. Too often I hear people saying, this was my childhood dream. When they achieve that dream later in life, their main emotion is relief that they've finally gotten where they wanted to be. Emphasis on the past tense, wanted. My question is always, what is your dream now? What do you want to be today, present tense? Number 4, always share your dreams with others. You need feedback. Your dreams may be too big or too small. You also need practice defending your dreams. Not every valuable lesson teaches you something to replicate. In fact, the most valuable lessons teach you something that you do not want to do. You must share your dreams because you never know who your lucky angel will be, the one who can unlock your dreams and bring them into reality. Sharing your dreams, I think, is much more exciting than sharing your achievements. It tells you who you will be, not who you were. So let me share with you my 5 current amazing dreams, just in case someone in the audience can help me. So number 1, I want to launch my own venture fund focused on East Africa, giving investors exposure to an exciting part of the world. I want to open an art gallery focused on Emirati and Tanzanian art, bringing light to the deep historical and cultural connection between the two countries. I want to write a book exploring how travel has informed my view of identity globally. I'd love to teach a university course on culturally inclusive development, the idea that development is not just increasing economic indicators, but is increasing societal goals and quality of life. And number 5, I want to have a series interviewing well-known people about their little-known passion projects to explore the difference between how they are publicly identified versus how they personally identify. If I only do one of those 5 things, I will continue to live an awesome life. Think about your own list. Let it change daily. Let it scare you and excite you, and tell everyone about it. As much as I can talk about how we dream up amazing what's next, I have a hard truth for you. The destination is not the most important. You will spend a lot more time getting to your destination than being at your destination. And once you achieve it, you will immediately be asked, what's next? So, this is where my other career comes in handy, the journey. As a record-holding traveler and one of the most traveled people ever, I have planned a lot of journeys, too many in fact. When I completed my journey to every country in the world, my parents flew out to Malta to celebrate with me. They love to be a part of my successes. They've actually driven 14 hours from Indiana to be here to listen to this speech. In Malta, in one moment between my father and I, he said, "This will be in your obituary." It's a much darker and more morbid way to say you've made it. But he was right. This is what I'm most known for. The amount of times that I've been introduced as Salvatore Lavallo, the youngest person to visit every country, is mind-blowing. An advisor of mine, John Sexton, the former president of NYU, used to discuss his theory of comma people, that sometimes the positions, titles, accomplishments, the descriptors said following the comma after our name is the thing that people value the most about us. He said that as much as what comes after the comma will open doors, enable opportunities, and impress, that we should never forget about what comes before the comma, yourself. Importantly, we must also never forget about the people who value us more than our achievements. When Lisa and I spoke before, she actually said this, saying that something felt wrong seeing my name as just the youngest person to travel to every country in the program. She said to me, "You are so much more." Always keep around the people who remind you that your name has more value than your accomplishments. Because accomplishment can take away from the self. For me, the thing about having a record that includes the youngest is that it also makes me feel old and sometimes alone. Because I realize that I've had an experience that nobody else has ever had at that age. It feels like life is moving too fast. If part of the obituary is already written at 27, then what else is there to look forward to? The reality is there's so much more. I just told you now about my 5 current goals, and none of them was travel related. I often say that I don't love travel, I love the world. I'm interested in how identity is both self-defined and societally prescribed, in cultural expression through the arts and daily life, and in the conceptual nation building linked to economic nation building. I love to compare. I want to see how different neighbors respond to similar situations, and I'm fascinated by how invisible lines in the sand can create imagined communities of nationhood and citizenry. When people assume that all I want to do is talk about or to do travel, I feel minimized. I'm so often asked where I am and not how I am. So much so that when I first started to travel full-time, I went 6 months without a phone, without any social media, and told nobody where I was. It was incredibly important to me that the conversations that I did have were regardless of my location. Later, this felt selfish. It was such a privilege seeing so much of the world and learning so much that I felt it was an injustice to not share with others. I started using social media with a tagline promoting the beauty and positivity of little-known and negatively perceived places because I wanted to expand people's ideas of what humanity is and to challenge their preconceived notions of places around the world. I love the power of Malian artist Malik Sidibe. He's the first African artist who won the Golden Lion at the Venice Biennale. In the 1960s, when everybody thought that Africa was only poverty and violence, he photographed nightclubs and the excitement of young love. He wanted to show that there's so much more to life than what others assume. I'm lucky to have a few of his photographs at home, and I love to see the young people dancing. In fact, once in a job interview for an investment position, I was asked what I learned from my travel. The interviewer was expecting an insight into economic markets or some trend in tech. Without thinking, I responded, "Everybody dances." Dancing is the simplest expression of human happiness, and without any shared language, I've made so many beautiful human connections through dance. And with that answer, I got the job. In traveling, I learned to connect with people incredibly quickly through our immense similarities, and to then learn from the differences. As I was exposed to these differences and became familiar with cultures and practices so different to my own, I adjusted and continued the Socratic paradox that the wisest man knows that he knows nothing, to say that the most traveled know that they've been nowhere. This is because the world is so vast. Even if you can go everywhere, you can never fathom all that is being experienced. There are 8 billion people living a life at this moment. Some, like you, are celebrating huge moments of their lives. Some are stuck in monotony, but we're all very similar, and we're all wondering, what's next? But just like you can't determine the destination, the journey is out of your control. I once planned a 6-day trip in Algeria, after which I would go to Libya, but the process of the Libyan visa got delayed. Every single excuse you could think of. Another person needed to sign off, someone was on sick leave, the office was closed, on and on. I ended up spending over a month waiting in Algeria. I always refuse to let waiting be a negative experience. Waiting is too often associated with irritation and impatience. I instead try to pray, read, or just reflect on my day or anything else productive to fill that time. That way, when they finally come and they say, "Sorry for making you wait," I can say, "Thank you for giving me time." As beautiful as that sounds, waiting in Algeria for a month was frustrating. But it gave me this incredible opportunity. Somebody slid into my DMs. It was a group of friends who were from the town that I was in. They all lived abroad for school, but were back that summer. I had nothing to do, and so I went out to dinner with them. From that moment on, I never left their sides. We spent 3 weeks together. We'd wake up late, spend hours on the beach, drive up to the mountains for sunset, go to one of their homes where their mothers were always fighting about who got to cook the best local dinner for us. And at night, we would dance and party until the morning. The next day, we would do it all again. I'm still close with these friends, and I travel almost every year to Paris to stay with one of them. That was the best waiting of my life, one of my favorite journeys, and entirely unplanned. You see, if you try to obsessively plan out the journeys or make assumptions about what you'll experience, then you'll always be waiting for it to happen the way that you want, and you will only see what you want to see. You will not get to explore the tangential paths that lead to experiences that will alter your view of humanity and be in your memory for the rest of your life, shaping who you are becoming and who you are around. So just like you shouldn't focus too much on the destination, don't worry too much about the journey. But maybe this is confusing. I said first that life is always a game of what's next. Second, I told you all about dreaming and the destination, and I said it doesn't matter. Third, I told you all about making assumptions and plans for your journey, and I said that doesn't matter. So what does matter? This last point is the real one. What matters is now. What matters is knowing your values and what you value and living every day true to these. You are incredibly lucky at this stage in your life. This is one of your first and one of your biggest what's next. You are probably experiencing or about to experience most big emotions for the first time. Success, failure, love, heartbreak, fear, joy, independence, gratitude. You get to experience all of these without reference points. They feel new, they feel unique, like no one in the world has ever gone through this. You haven't tried to turn doors shutting in your face into open windows. You haven't watched the ebb and the flow of playing catch up with your own potential, and you're just at the cusp of identity-defining changes. The best time of your life may really be at this exact moment, because you are closest to your most unadulterated self. Think about that word for a second, adulterated. The definition is mixed with impurities. That's what the word adult comes from. It's not the other way around. You are becoming an adult now. As you do so, make sure that the inputs, the experiences, people, and places that you include in your life are not impurities that you are mixed with. So, as a very world-exhausted, adulterated adult, what advice could I possibly have to give you about how to live your life now? As I sat down to write these thoughts, I became stressed, thinking about what I could tell you that would help you in this next phase of your life. I thought back to when I was your age, sitting and listening to my graduation speaker, and I realized I don't remember it at all. I literally have no idea who it was, or what he, or she said, and that took a lot of pressure off. I do actually remember the key message of one of Lisa's speeches. I don't know if it was my class or the class before me, and it's probably not because I paid the best attention, but because I would always spend as much time trying to find free food as I could while at boarding school. And so I would go to Lisa's house for every birthday celebration, even when it wasn't my birthday. In her speech to one of these classes, Lisa discussed the lyrics to a song that came out in 2001, which is shockingly before you were even born. It was called Superman by a band called Five for Fighting. It's told from the point of view of the superhero contemplating what is expected of him and who he is to others versus who he is to himself. The lyrics go, "I'm more than a bird, I'm more than a plane, I'm more than some pretty face beside a train. It's not easy to be me." In fact, it's not easy to be anyone. We are all struggling with a sense of identity split between how we are viewed by others and how we view ourselves. The struggle is largely about making it, about the value we prescribe to things that we do and the way we live. I said above that the smallest way to live is to care about what other people think, but also that it's human nature to do so. At your age, it's very common, I did it myself, to say that you don't care. You think society is stupid, all institutions are structured against their stated goals, and everyone is hypocritical. But trust me, that is played out. You're adding nothing to the teen genre. Not caring is not a personality, and caring about not caring is just caring in a clown costume. We all care. Just make sure that you make your care matter. To live in the now, decide what it is that you value, both how you value yourself, what enables you to go to bed at night proud and smiling, and also in how you will allow others to value you. The poet A. Helwa wrote that to live a life that is inspired is to live a life in spirit and connection with your true essence and purpose in life. Understanding your purpose and taking time to recognize your essence will lead to this inspired life. But it is really difficult to know what to value. We're living in a world where value is so multidimensional. There are so many different measures of success. When I was younger, to be liked, the only options were the dozens or so kids in your class, and being followed was still only for stalkers. Now you can find 100,000 people online who also have the most obscure interests like you. There's even an online community for competitive travelers, and in it, I'm kind of a big deal. Some people have made the mistake that this access to more people means trying to make all of them like you. But don't worry about the masses. Try to find your tribe, the ones who most naturally, with the least amount of effort, and in the ways that you most value yourself, value you. Whether you want to be rich, smart, fashionable, famous, athletic, well-read, well-traveled, the best parent, or the top player in some online game, pick your value and let the value be what guides you on your journey and to your destination. This is what keeps you unadulterated. If you let it be the other way around, that the obsession with getting to some destination or having the right journey dictates the values that you hold, then you'll just be a regular, boring, adulterated adult. So back to this question of what I can tell you. To help me decide what to say in this speech, I called a friend of mine and I told her the basic points that I wanted to deliver. She listened to me for a few minutes, and then she said, "How about this?" And suddenly she dove into this gorgeously crafted speech about the exact topics I just told her I wanted to touch on. I stopped her asking how she was doing this completely spontaneously, and she said, "I put your points into ChatGPT." I then realized that your life will be so different to anything that I could ever imagine. The world is more dynamic than anything before. You can do anything, anytime. One of my craziest and most exciting days that I've ever had, I woke up in India, had breakfast among the crazy sights and smells of Delhi, flew to Abu Dhabi, and had a couple businesses pitch their ideas to me over lunch near the airport, and then I took off and landed in Italy for dinner with some of my cousins. That was an awesome day, but very confusing. I'm not convinced that our minds are made to deal with that amount of experience in such a short amount of time. When reflecting on my life, I often think about the weight of experience. For millennia, humans had social interactions with only a couple hundred people in their lifetime. They didn't stray more than a few kilometers any day and lived nearly every season identical to the last. I'm not convinced that our minds are able to comprehend all of the diverse realities within our world. We need a calculator to understand numbers that are bigger than we can imagine. We need an external hard drive to store data that is bigger than our computers. But what is the tool to assist the human brain in understanding our complex, modern, personal experiences? With digital worlds, this will become worse and worse. Even the constraints of our bodies and the speed of transportation won't limit what we experience. It took me 13 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and dozens of standoffs with immigration officers to get visas to visit every country. Now you can put on a virtual reality headset and do it all in one afternoon. I always found it funny that when it comes to time spent on travel, it's usually 40% planning, 10% actually traveling, and 50% telling people about your trip. Through all the technological advancements that allow us to understand the world better, the amount of planning has been diminished. But rather than using that extra time to live more, we've decided to increase the telling people about your trip part. We don't learn how to be, we learn how to perform. For a few years, I made my living from social media. It was a lot of fun. Lots of free trips, companies would send me stuff to try on, girls wanted to date my blue check, and a good chuckle at the occasional anonymous hate comment. But it was curated. I know I wasn't showing myself. I've always separated myself from my content. I didn't define myself or my personality by my feed. I knew I was more than what I presented to the world. Make sure that you know who you are and who you are not. You are not your college admissions essay. You are not your TikTok. You are not what the other kids in your class think of you. You are always more. A key part of living in the now, focused beyond the destination and the journey, is to be aware of the difference between what you think you should do and what you want to do. I once had a friend tell me that her trip to Rome was fine, except for the day that she had to wait hours to get inside the Sistine Chapel. I asked her why she did that, as she didn't particularly like history or art and she wasn't Catholic. She said, because you have to. But no, you don't. Especially in travel, but every day in your life, don't make decisions on what you think you need to do. It's a frightening paradox of our time. Understanding more of the world seems to come at the expense of understanding ourselves. Both humanity and individuality are infinite. Trying to comprehend either is completely futile. All you can do to stay afloat is to use your values and what you value to guide you. It can be scary to focus on your current self. You can't change your past and you can't know your future. The present is all that you can control. It's important to have confidence in your momentum, to feel that you are moving forward, developing, moving closer to your potential. You can take all the right steps and never get to your expected destination. But when you are living your values, nothing you are doing is a mistake. You cannot imagine how different you will be in the future. In fact, all of the most important aspects of my own identity I became after my high school graduation. The two places I call home, Tanzania and Abu Dhabi, I first visited when I was 20 years old. I converted to Islam 10 years ago, something that has guided me through the rest of my journey. My travel title came nearly 6 years ago, and my professional one only 3 years ago. I'm so happy where I am, but I have no idea where I will be tomorrow. Thinking through all of these major changes and the identity shifts, it's crazy to think back to when I was your age, and I ask myself, if so much of what defines me has only come from 20 years old onwards, who was I before? What is the part of my identity that has woven throughout my entire life? What has maintained from each point to the next, the piece that has remained the same through all the growth? The answer is the guiding light and uniqueness of myself and the ineffable part of what has kept true. It can be hard, almost impossible, to recognize this in ourselves. Perhaps we are too complex to fully see ourselves for who we really are. I say the same about culture. A local knows more than a visitor, but a visitor is able to see things that a local takes for granted. This is why it's important to have people around you who valued you before you knew your value yourself. Look around you at your friends who've shared this momentous time in your life, and look behind you at the family that loves and supports you unconditionally. As you go through your journey, your many what's next, and reach all of your dreams, don't forget to always touch base with the people who made you who you are at this special time when all of your emotions were new. There are 2 times in your life when your brain changes the most, dictating your future views, outlook, and attitude. The first is as a young child, and this you are far beyond. The second is in your early 20s. You're still a couple years away from this, but this is in your hands. Surround yourself by those that you learn from, that inspire you, that make your dreams come true, the ones that will keep you unadulterated. Achieving any dream takes a village. There's almost nothing in this world that you can accomplish alone, and even the things that you can are way less fun than when you do it surrounded by people who share that dream. This year, in planning my summer travels, I decided not to worry about where I go and instead focus on who I was with. I reached out to my best friends from childhood, boarding school, university, and now, and have planned travel to see them, interspersed with visits to family in the States, Germany, and Italy. Anyone following along social media will see that it is a continuation of my travels, the last decade or more. But for me, this signifies an important shift of prioritizing relationships over locations. It's exciting to spend time with such people who are close to me from every point in my life. It allows me to reflect on who I was then, how it informs who I am now, and what values are going to guide me into my what's next. A man once asked the prophet, "Who should I value the most in my life?" And Muhammad answered, "Your mother." The man then said, "Who should I value the second most?" The prophet replied, "Your mother." And third, your mother. Finally, the man said, "Who should I value the fourth most?" And the prophet said, "Your father." So since we've talked about destinations, journeys, and mothers being the ultimate value, let me end with a story of what my mother says was the beginning of the rest of my life. When I was 18, I started studying culturally inclusive development at NYU. Soon I wanted to go beyond the texts I was reading and have real-life experiences in the field. Studying development is studying a history of failure, and I was a bit in my everyone is a hypocrite phase. It seemed that most organizations were just giving communities random donations and of things that they assumed they needed. A few were instead asking the communities what they needed and thought it was a much more noble approach. But this disregarded the paradox of the local that I discussed before. Those on the inside can't see everything, and neither can those on the outside. I thought a better approach was to spend time with the communities, having discussions on development, identity, and value, and once we had a foundational understanding, the community would collectively decide what to use the grant money for. With that idea and funding from the Davis Projects for Peace, started by Catherine Wasserman B. Davis, who once said, "It is more fun living in a world that you're trying to make better," myself and my best friend set out to Tanzania. Through many serendipitous events of effort, luck, and perseverance, we connected with a small village that was 8 hours from the capital on dirt roads without any data connectivity and limited electricity. The population there still lives on less than $1 a day. We spent 6 weeks doing our workshops, making connections, and allocating the grants. As we got on the bus to leave, I remember looking out the window, saying goodbye, and then turning to my friend and saying, "We did it. Now we just have to do it bigger." We did these introspection workshops and grant giving in Tanzania, St. Kitts, Venezuela, and Brazil. Though we've halted these projects since graduating, we've both spent our entire careers in economic development and civil society organizations. She is the one who used the ChatGPT on me and who I will travel with for 10 days next month. I've returned to that village in Tanzania each of the 12 years since the first trip. I've continued to support the community there in different ways, buying farms, sending kids to school, and setting up small businesses as the economy has developed and some of the world's technology has caught up. It's where I converted to Islam, and I call it my home, and I feel more comfortable there than almost anywhere else in the world. Trail of Seeds is just part of the story. The real reason that that time in my life and that place means so much to me is because that summer I was at the peak of suffering from PTSD caused by a 3-year abusive relationship. Abuse is being told and shown that you don't have value and that you won't make it. Today is a good day, celebrating your graduation, but some days you won't feel like you've made it and that you maybe never will. And that's why it's important to always dream, because there's always a what's next. The work that we did in Tanzania not only gave me value in line with my values, but I did it alongside someone who knew I had value and reminded me every day that I did. And together we gave value to others who also needed to hear it. So that's the reason that our Trail of Seeds project was the beginning of the rest of my life. But my father says the same thing about when I went to boarding school. I say the same about when, without any phone, I started my travel. Strangers think it's the day I finished the record. My mentors say it's when I started my most recent job. Maybe it'll be the day that I get married or inshallah have a child. All of these have been and will be my moments of what's next. The destinations have changed, the journeys have been amazing, and through it all I've been guided by my values, by myself, and by the reminders of those who I love, who know my values and aren't afraid to remind me. It's been a privilege to speak to you. I hope you do remember some of this, but if you haven't listened so far, here are the 3 key points. First, you've made it. You will always be asked and always ask yourself, what's next? Second, know that the dreaming the destination matters more than reaching it, and that the journey will be a winding road that you can never control. Infinite paths will lead to infinite goals. Therefore, third point, what matters is now. Because if you focus on living every day based on the values that you have for yourself, then you'll get to where you need to be, and you will get there unadulterated. You will get there with the friends and family who love and support you, and along the way, you will impact others too. You've made it. Now go and make it every single day.